Much love. We are back. Back at it. Taking a crack at it and cracking it open with the words we have spoken. Much love to you as we take another look inside this beautiful book and exploring more with Maor. This is actually a book called A Year Without Food. As we get in the mood with an attitude of gratitude, this is Jerome Shaw, host of the Open Palm Podcast, motivator. Meditator, coming at you with another message. So if you haven't yet seen the introduction of the other chapters, you can go right now or even after. Take that look through the playlist as we say this. And of course, that playlist is called The Pranic Pages. Fear of air fasting for a whole week. This only happens in the 21-day process and not in the Pranic living group initiation. Even though I was a well-trained faster who had been fasting for 6 years for 1 day a week on water only, I had never air fasted, or we could say air feasted, for more than a day. This was when celebrating Yom Kippur as a child. So this fear falls under the category of fear of the unknown. In retrospect, I can say I was not hungry or thirsty because of a leap in consciousness, as well as knowing my good friend and Breatharian guide, who promised me that I would have a smooth ride. Love this guy. You know, I love the rhymes every time. The only real physical effect that can annoy you is the fact that your throat is definitely dry until the 7th day, and it acts as a constant reminder that you are air fasting, which causes some mind games of its own. Boredom. Another possible challenge in some of the processes is boredom. Most people have never spent 3 weeks by themselves in isolation. And we see this a lot in the congregation, you know. I even used to know people who had to be in relations with others, you know. They constantly had to be in a relationship with another. They could never be by themselves. It was interesting to be able to see that as well. This is not a normal state in our modern world. You don't have any communication with the outside world or any technology that connects you with the outside world. You can only talk to 2 people, and only for short periods of time. During the first 2 weeks, you also do not move much. One can get pretty bored under these conditions. That reminds me of when I was in a boarding school in Calhoun, Tennessee. I couldn't talk to my folks through any means until a certain amount of time had passed, you know. So that was almost like a family and outside friendship fast, you know. And at the time, it was a pretty big task, you know, pretty big challenge for anyone to ask. The process is basically a combination of vipassana and a health fast with a long mental process of connecting to a higher power of your choice, and it triples the difficulties each process inherently has, with unconditional love and a true understanding that one is born alone, dies alone, and is one's own best friend. It is easy to get over the boredom. It is wise to think ahead about what you may like to do during this time and to equip yourself accordingly. In addition, do not expect that you will sleep a lot. You will actually get only a few hours of sleep during this process. You often wake up before sunrise and will not require much sleep since you meditate often and are slowly becoming a breatharian who does not require much sleep by definition. Any and all future concerns you may bring into the process, which have been created by your mind, will become an obstacle and a test. The rules of your game. As we see that we never remain the same unless we maintain and sustain the things we have in the brain. Don't be insane in the membrane. Create the rules of your game, right? Put some respect on your name. To cope, a breatharian has to keep some ground rules. For some, it is easy, while others go back to eating. In Israel, for example, we know of 25 people who have completed the process, but only 15 are currently living a breatharian lifestyle. Try fasting for a few days through the family holidays, and you'll see what I mean. If someone breaks through the first 4 to 6 months, they will probably remain a breatharian. Breatharians understand that they are playing a game inside the illusion of what we call life. A good example would be to look at physical reality in the movie The Matrix. It's my favorite movie. Favorite film. When one achieves self-mastery, one understands the great illusion better than before. You can compare this to being a player inside a computer game. This game is part of the vibration theory in our great illusion. And the one who is pulling the strings is our very own, all-knowing, elusive higher self. The higher self. When a breatharian enters the game, he or she understands the human body is just one of the many existing bodies. Right? We're catching a lot of bodies out here. I've even heard of the Buddhic body. You got your physical body, your emotional body, your spiritual body, your intellectual body, your Buddhic body, your Sattvic body, all these bodies. It is only the body physically noticeable by our limited eyesight, except for people who can see auras. So I guess they can see the etheric body or the astral body as well. To continue to play the game, the player must construct rules for themselves according to their understanding, conscious level, and inner strength. Why are rules required? Think of becoming a breatharian as a challenge similar to climbing a mountain. If you take it step by step and eventually get to the peak, then you want to establish a base there and not fall down the cliff on the other side. I have observed similarities in the way breatharians go back to eating after the process. This can be best described by the metaphor of smoking. A cigarette smoker who has stopped will avoid cigarettes for as long as they can. Their ego will then tell them they are strong enough to smoke just one cigarette for fun, for old time's sake, because of being in a social situation or because they are having a drink and the associations are strong. In that moment lies the beginning of the return. Bum, 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 dun, dun, dun. The beginning of the return to old habits, and it can all go downhill from there. If you smoke a cigarette once, the next time you might tell yourself that you've already smoked one cigarette and that it wouldn't matter if you smoke another, right? Right? You may tell yourself that you are completely over it, and more mind games and excuses ensue. The same goes for food. A possible breatharian narrative is that we have been addicted to food nourishment most of our lives, and choosing to eat something solid after a breatharian process may very well constitute the first cigarette. It is a good example of ego and an inability to understand that one first has to become strong enough. The recommendation is to refrain from solid food for the first 6 months of your breatharian life. Rules are required, especially in the beginning. Some people choose to continue with the rules indefinitely and then change them to suit their own experiences and personal development. Some strong individuals do not need them at all, while others think they do not need them and find out a little too late that they actually do. Some examples. You now understand why some basic rules are necessary and why I applied rules to strengthen my belief system. A first basic rule will be to call drinking or anything that goes into your mouth tasting and not eating. If I were to call it eating or eating food, it would cause strong memory associations that tell my subconscious mind that I will be nourished from what I consume. This rule was created without any awareness and more or less automatically by other breatharians to avoid deep-seated associations. When a breatharian plays their game, they must always be aware of this taste frame. They can allow themselves to bend some of the rules sometimes, and at other times apply stricter rules. I strongly believe that having rules is good for discipline and self-belief, but some are meant to be broken because we are, after all, here for the experience and for the pleasures of life. The pleasures, the treasures, and the ways that we each measure this existence. Even though I have chosen a challenging journey regarding food and the world of taste as a breatharian, it does not mean that I have to be rigid. I am just one breatharian explaining his own story. Others have developed different methods of adjusting to this way of life. Here are some basic examples of my rules in the first year after my process. I still practice some of these today, although I am less strict. Fasting. Observe a minimum of 1 fasting day per week without water or any liquid. I usually do between 1 to 2 air fasting days a week. This rule is very important to maintain high discipline and is a reminder that you are living on light. In my pre-breatharian life, I used to do a water fast once a week for 24 hours to detox my body. I did this for 6 years and took the rule from another philosophy that recommended it. This rule is also great in case I am too liberal with myself in the days before the fast because it simply breaks down everything. Once you stop tasting, your prana percentage increases and you feel your connectivity to the universe once again. This serves as a great reminder why you chose to become a breatharian in the first place. Taste. Make taste last longer and distinguish your taste experiences from regular nutrition. You can do this by using a straw or overheating your tea or many other things that will make you enjoy whatever it is you choose to drink for a longer time. This simple rule reminds you that you are nourished in other ways than through food. You can bless the drink. I love doing that, actually. You can bless the drink and take time to fully appreciate whatever is given in the moment. If you simply close your eyes, you will experience a deeper flavor experience, right? So sometimes you have to lose your mind to come to your senses, right? Tips and tricks. Number 1, learn how to forget. Some of our friends deal in the stock market. Do you ever wonder why we only remember the success stories and not the ones that fail? Try to collect memories of your own success stories in different situations, challenges, and emotions, and consciously forget the failures. Remember your victories and triumphs. You are not fooling yourself. Quite the opposite. You are smart enough to understand how you truly function and know how to best use the brain's mechanisms to make neural connections that work for you. And I love doing this when it comes to journaling, because with journaling, you can go back and you can recall the big and the small, all the moments that you were with your body and the different times that you met challenges, the times when you were using your talents, when you were discovering yourself, when you were finding your balance, and when you met up against setbacks, you fail forward You bounced back, you kept going, right? You didn't give up, or you slipped, you fell, you tripped, right, as well. You can go back and you can read all of that in your journal, and the energy is still there. And it can show you the different patterns of your subconscious and help you become even more aware, right? So it's a wonderful thing what a journal may bring. Document your life. I think a life worth living is a life worth documenting, you know? Live an adventure and read your own story. 2, don't think about food. Sounds obvious, right? If you have decided to play this game, be completely into it and truly let go. A breatharian who feels sorry for himself, or who constantly thinks, why can't I eat now? Or why have I selected this way of life? Will probably go back to eating more quickly than someone who has decided to commit to the game all the way. It is fine to question your decision as you continue with your process, but there's no reason to linger on these thoughts for long. You can always eat or drink something, just not in huge quantities you have been used to. Ellie Tom used to tell us that there was this one lady who was asking Ellie Tom, she wanted permission. She wanted permission for herself to have something, you know, like she wanted to go to Taco Bell or Taco Cabana or someplace to get a chalupa or burrito or something. And he said, yeah, sure, you know, if you're thinking about it, if you want it that bad, go ahead and have it, you know, but just have one, you know, and make sure you chew it when you do it, right? Just chew it. Don't swallow it whole. Because that's what I used to do, you know? I thought that there wasn't enough time in the world to eat what I had on my plate. You know, can you relate? And as a side effect, I didn't feel so great, you know, because my stomach was stuffed. So it was tough, you know? I made it rough on my body because I never felt like there was enough in my body, you know? So don't just scarf it down, you know? Take some time. Really redefine what it means to be nourished. Mindfully eat. When you're having your seat, realize that you're already whole and complete. So even if you don't finish the plate, there's really nothing that's going to waste. Don't tell yourself, oh, I need this. Just tell yourself, I'm going to taste. Right? Put a smile on your face. 3, remember that you are tasting. Here we go. You do not depend on whatever goes into your mouth for its nutritional value. This is an important point to remember in your game. We have a tendency to eat quickly. Whew, that was me. And forget to appreciate what we swallow. Right? Always feeling empty, feeling that void, feeling hollow, not even regarding the things that you swallow. Using a straw is a great way to take your time and taste something properly. Placing intention using a short sentence before you drink, such as, thank you for what I'm about to drink, and then drinking slowly, helps you remember that you have no real dependence on the drink. I know a breatharian who heats his tea to a very high temperature, so he will only drink small quantities at a time. The main point here is that you are tasting, not eating. It is true that a part of what we eat or drink is digested and used by the body. The amount depends on how much you choose to eat and how much your body is used to. If you choose to eat on a daily basis, your body will activate your food engine and ask for more food, right? The more we have, the more we need, you know? The more we eat, the more we crave. The more we want, the more we save, right? But the less we have, the less we need as we proceed to build the chi. becoming even more free. It also depends on where you are consciously. However, I cannot imagine someone being strong enough to eat all the time and simultaneously being able to remain in a pranic state. I would have to agree. Sooner or later, that pranic engine is going to go back to the chronic engine, right? That food engine of, that mood engine, right? You go back to all of the things that you used to have in that state, So in either state, there are things that you can appreciate. But it's all about the feeling state for you, the feeling state that you are aligned to. 4, deal with food-related sensations. If you get hungry, do not eat. If you get thirsty, do not drink. This rule is pretty basic and ensures that the connection between thirst and hunger with food or drink will not be reestablished in the brain. As mentioned earlier, a breatharian generally does not feel hunger or thirst. However, these sensations originate in the mind and could still occur in the beginning of the process, especially when a breatharian feels negative, right? When you're feeling low, where do you usually go, right? You already know. 5, learn to fake it till you make it. At least in your own eyes, our minds do not know how to tell the difference between imagination and reality. When you think and pretend that you are something, you actually become it for a brief moment in time. A fake smile and a real smile are interpreted in the same way and will bring up the same associations. Try it. Autosuggestion works in exactly the same way. It is a method that relies on the belief that any idea exclusively occupying the mind turns into reality. Although, of course, only to the extent that the idea lies within the realm of possibility. For example, a person without hands will not be able to make them grow back. However, if someone firmly believes that his or her asthma is disappearing, this may actually happen as far as the body is able to physically overcome or control the illness. On the other hand, thinking negatively about the illness, for example, saying I'm not feeling well, will encourage both the mind and body to accept and act on the thought. The main obstacle to autosuggestion is willpower. For this method to work, a person must refrain from making an independent judgment, meaning that they must not let their will impose other views over the positive ideas. Everything must be done to ensure a positive auto-suggested idea is consciously accepted. Otherwise, one may end up achieving the opposite effect of what is desired. We are our own worst enemies and best saviors. I love that. We are our own worst enemies and best saviors. It's like they say, you are your only problem in life. Yet you are also your only solution. Woo! Come on now. Don't you feel it? 6, don't compare yourself to others. Woo! That's a big one right there. Like they say, comparison is the thief of all joy. Don't you know it robs you of your happiness? Come on now. One of the biggest problems we have is the embedded idea of normality. What is normal? I feel like Mortal Kombat. Normality. Society wins. Your soul is mine. Normality. Research done on social groups has shown that 60% of who we are is defined by the people who surround us. The fact that we want to belong and be understood makes us become more like others. This is why obesity, for example, is contagious. Wow, there was a lady I remember who lived in Atlanta, was raised in Atlanta, Georgia, where, you have your home cooking, down home cooking, that country food, right? Like they say, soul food, the yams, the hog mogs, the pig feet, the collard greens, the chitterlings, and all those things, right? The string beans and mashed potatoes and macaroni and, grandma's homemade apple pie and peach cobbler. And she came from down south, right? And she was around other people who looked just like she looked. But it was only until this lady flew to Seattle, Washington, all the way on the other side of the US, where she was able to look around as soon as her plane touched down, and she saw, hold up now, is something wrong with me? Because she was the only person in that area that she could visually see that was obese. Now, before, she didn't see herself as obese. But now, when she was around a different environment, around different people, she could see herself from another angle. Right? It was very interesting to have that perspective when she was in the midst of another collective. Research done on social groups, 60%, right. We define ourselves according to others' opinions and beliefs. The who's got the best grade competition takes place from a person's birth until their maturity and teaches us to compete with others. This is simply wrong. The best thing is to compare yourself to your own highest potential and not to what others are doing. Compare yourself to the supervision of you. Comparing yourself to others causes unnecessary self-judgment and a lack of unconditional love, which is a key and important milestone in graduating to higher levels. So kind of like Usain Bolt, he doesn't race the other racers, he races himself, He is the one that redefines, he is the one that is always inclined to beat his own time. He's always in competition in his own mind, racing himself, It's interesting. Never in competition with anyone else. Number 7, experience food in different ways. You can experience the smell of food instead of the food itself. Now, I did this one time and it was such an adventure, When I was completely, feeling detoxed, and I hadn't gone through the ups and downs and back and forth of the retox, right? It was a shock to me just to see how inhaling the sense of food was doing wonders for my mood. It was like, I didn't know that I could smell like this. I felt like Wolverine. You ever seen Wolverine from the X-Men? Hey, bub. I was smelling everything. And I would go down Grand Central Market in downtown Los Angeles, up and down, the food vendors, the stalls, and I could smell it all. And I felt like a dog. Seriously, I felt like my mind was just blowing away by all the smells in the air that day, And it would become a ritual for me to just go and eat through my nose. Having a euphoric experience. It was like a nosegasm. I was having an orgasmic experience through smell. I'll never forget it. You can experience food through others, right? Just being in the company of someone who's eating, right? You don't actually have to partake of what is on the plate to be able to appreciate someone in that state. You can actually just have a meal by really leaning into the way that you feel, right? And it's real. Being a breatharian brings with it a true and deep understanding of the concept that we are one. To understand that we are one, you must understand that the experience of one is the experience of all. If my friends are eating next to me, I am also eating. Sometimes I even convince my friends to eat something that I would like to have in that particular moment because I'm aware that I am experiencing the taste through them. That is interesting. Wow. To be judgmental is to be disharmonious with perfection's imperfections. Beautiful. And we'll go ahead and take a pause till we come next time and continuing to take a look in this marvelous book, Exploring More with Sir Ray Maor. Much love to you, my friend, as we're continuing to reach a new stage in today's modern age. This has been Jerome Shaw, and thank you for turning the page.